The thing gradually passed from my mind as a coincidence. I had a good night's sleep in Pittsburgh. I didn't think about the man at all the next day until just outside of Zanesville, Ohio. I saw him again. It was a bright, sunshiny afternoon. The peaceful Ohio fields, brown with the autumn stubble, lay dreaming in the golden light. I was driving slowly, drinking it in, when the road suddenly ended in a detour. In front of the barrier, he was standing. Let me explain about his appearance before I go on. I repeat, there was nothing sinister about him. He was as drab as a mud fence, nor was his attitude menacing. He merely stood there, waiting, almost drooping a little, cheap overnight bag in his hand. He looked as though he'd been waiting there for hours, and he hailed me. He started to walk forward.
Hello!
I'd stopped the car, of course, for the detour. I realized that he must be thinking that I'd stop for him.
Hello!
No, not just now. I'm sorry.
Going to California?
No, not today. I'm going to New York. Sorry. After I got the car back on the road again, I felt like a fool. Yet the thought of picking him up, of having him sit beside me, was somehow unbearable. Yet at the same time, I felt more than ever unspeakably alone. Hour after hour went by. The fields, the towns ticked off one by one. The light changed. I knew now that I was going to see him again, and though I dreaded the sight, I caught myself searching the side of the road, waiting for him to appear. Night came and I drove on, slowly. I was beginning to hate the car. If I could have found a place to rest a little, but I was in the Ozark Mountains of Missouri now. The few resort places there were closed. I knew I'd see him again, maybe at the next turn of the road. I knew that when I saw him next, I'd run him down. But I didn't see him again until late the next afternoon. I'd stopped the car at a sleepy little junction just across the border into Oklahoma to let a train pass by when he appeared across the tracks. He was leaning against a telephone pole. It was a perfectly airless, dry day. The red clay of Oklahoma was baking under the southwestern sun, yet there were spots of fresh rain on his shoulders. I couldn't stand that. Without thinking, blindly, I started the car across the tracks. He didn't even look up at me. He was staring at the ground. I stepped on the gas hard, veering the wheel sharply toward him. I could hear the train in the distance now, but I didn't care. Then something went wrong with the car. It stalled right on the tracks. The train was coming closer. I could hear its bell, its cry, its whistle crying. Still, he stood there. Now I knew that he was beckoning me to my death.
Welcome to Reimagined Radio, a program about radio storytelling. With each episode, we explore how dialogue, sound effects, and music can combine to promote storytelling and engage your listening imagination. We also like to include the stories behind the story, the history, the connections, trivia, and we always strive to answer the questions, so what? And why is this important? This episode is no different. And here to tell you about it is John Barber, producer and host.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Our episode is WRW Retrospective Redux.
Our next story is a story. Well, that's the way it starts. But once again, the perception is all.
That's Sam A. Mowry, founder and director of Willamette Radio Workshop. You heard him earlier also during the episode opening. And he's absolutely right. Perception is everything. You see, this episode of Reimagined Radio is a memoriam for Sam, who died July 20, 2024. Just a year earlier, in July 2023, we offered WRW Retrospective, an episode about Willamette Radio Workshop. Sam Mowry was our guest. So this episode is a redux, a look back, a revisiting of that earlier episode, plus samples from Sam's appearances in Reimagined Radio productions. A memoriam to celebrate his huge contributions to radio storytelling and Reimagined Radio. While listening, please visit our website, reimaginedradio.fm. There, on the WRW Retrospective Redux archival webpage, you'll find more information and a copy of our script, which you may like to follow as you listen. Thank you for joining us as Reimagined Radio presents WRW Retrospective Redux. Willamette Radio Workshop, abbreviated as WRW, is a collaborative of actors, writers, singers, musicians, and sound designers interested in radio theater. Their live performances and studio productions of radio stories span 2 decades and have attracted regional, national, and international attention, along with several awards. WRW was founded in 2001 by Sam A. Mowry, an aspiring theater and radio actor living in Portland, Oregon. Let's begin our story there, the origin, with samples from our 2023 conversation with Mowry.
Thank you so much for having me, John. I feel like saying having us as the workshop.
It's a pleasure to visit with you, Sam, and the workshop. Let's start with some context. How did you begin this adventure?
We started in October of 2001. The way we started is always kind of fascinating to me because I've been a stage actor for 40 years. I've always loved radio. My father was very much into radio. I have several album collections of The Shadow and Fibber McGee and Molly and things like that. I was reading the newspaper and checking for auditions, and there was this thing about a meetup at the library for people interested in doing radio dramas. And I was like, that sounds interesting. I wonder how that would happen. So I went and showed up, and it was at the library in their big meeting room. And first thing I noticed was there were like 8 other theater people I knew who were there, and I didn't know that they were into radio. They didn't know I was into radio. And we sat there, and a young man, Michael Hopcroft, the spiritual godfather of the Willamette Radio Workshop, because he had this meeting, and he got up and explained his vision, which was a science fiction series where everyone would record their pieces at home and then send them to him, and then he would cut them all together. Now, for all of us stage actors, we were like, oh my God, that sounds terrible. We're not working with each other. How would we know how to read something if we didn't get the feedback? So we listened to his pitch, and then people started talking about reservations they had about that kind of thing. And it was basically, you'll record something on the mic on your laptop and send it to us, and 6 months from now, we'll have the finished product. And we just really weren't game for it. Then that would seem totally bizarre. Now I realize that's what, 80% of the audio drama podcasts out there, that's how they're done.
It sounds like you were put off by the proposed switch from stage acting to radio theater. What changed your mind?
What happened was, after the meeting, we started talking to each other in a little group, and then I noticed these 2 people over by the side of the room, they were talking with each other, and I had very much liked what they had said in the process, and they obviously had more of an understanding of how to, edit and put things together just from the questions they were asking. And so we came over and started talking to each other, and it was Marc and Rob just hit it off right away, I'd say. And they started telling us about a project they were working on called Dry Smoke and Whispers. And he was like, yeah, we've just come to town, and yeah, we're looking for more actors, and it seems like there's some people here who are involved in radio, want to be involved in radio. And I was like, well, sure, come on over to my house. I got a 2-car garage, and we can, we rehearse in there. We can come in and you can audition all the actors you want. And we did, and it was a great experience, and they are both geniuses when it comes to radio drama. And, I think pretty much everybody who auditioned ended up doing something in the show.
Just to clarify, when you say you met Marc and Rob at that meeting, you're talking about Marc Rose and Rob Cannon. Marc is with us today, and we'll hear from him soon. Rob is a graphic designer and writer. He collaborates with Marc to produce their Dry Smoke and Whispers radio series.
Yeah, and that was just the beginning of a beautiful friendship. And Marc and I have done, I can't even count the number of shows that we've done over 20 years.
Willamette Radio Workshop is noted for adapting classic radio dramas and offering innovative radio theater. How did this evolve?
We would meet in the backyard of Rob Cowell and Mary Robinette Cowell, award-winning science fiction author. We just sit around in a circle and talk about what we wanted to do and what we liked and what we didn't like and what we liked about radio as opposed to theater or movies. And as we went around, eventually came down to, well, we needed to do something. We needed to do something that already had handled all the problems of audio drama for us to figure out how to move forward. So we decided to do, surprise, surprise, War of the Worlds.
The War of the Worlds, starring Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on the Air, is the most famous radio drama ever broadcast. Your first public performance, and you decide to go big. What happened?
It was wonderful, but we didn't have microphones. We didn't have computers or anything to do sound effects. It was all just us acting out what we thought a live radio show would be. And we loved it, and we had great audiences. And so we said, what can we do next?
What was your follow-up to the War of the Worlds?
We next had Cebu Radio. And D. May Roberts has a show called Stage and Studio. And every once in a while, she would hit a point where she was going to miss a show. And she had heard about our show and said, hey, would you like to do a live radio show for us? And I was like, sure, because I'm not afraid of anything.
D. May Roberts is a 2-time Peabody Award-winning radio producer and writer. Her radio show adds national quality arts, literature, and media to our regional arts scene. That was a big break for you, Sam, and WRW. Tell us what happened.
Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock in the morning was our time slot. So all of our unemployed actors agreed to do the show. And we did something that my wife Cindy wrote for us, which was called The Call of the Mummy. She had never written for radio before, but I played her a bunch of my favorite stuff and just said, I need this show in a week. And she wrote it, and we rehearsed for a week. And then we did the live show, and it was pretty rough. But it was live radio theater, and we just really kind of got us all very excited by the process of doing it. One of the things I always loved was our slogan, which was Live Radio Lives. And then Chris Porter, of course, said, or it could be Live Radio Lives. So now whenever I put that on any of our promotions, it says Live Radio Lives, Live Radio Lives.
When you first started with live performances of radio theater, did you call yourself Willamette Radio Workshop, or did that name evolve over time?
Yeah, pretty much, because we couldn't agree on what we wanted to do. So, of course, we argued over things like what name. Our inspiration was always Orson Welles. He was the god of radio. as far as we knew. And a lot of people were saying, oh, we should just be the Mercury Theater on the air. And I thought that was, not very original. So I was like, he did a lot of work for the Columbia Workshop, and, we have the Columbia River here. And I said, well, again, it'll be confusing for people. So we said, oh, why don't we make it the Willamette Radio Workshop? Because, that's the other big river around here.
So the word workshop in your title is a nod to the Columbia Workshop and their experimental approach to radio storytelling on CBS Radio, 1936 to 1943, and then again from 1946 to 1947.
Exactly, and that's what I've always wanted to, that to be the essence of what we do, is to be a workshop where we try things out and try different things. Because my favorite part of being an actor in theater is the rehearsal process, where you try things and they fail. Sometimes they fail, sometimes they succeed, but you're always striving to do something new and different. And so I thought that would be a good touchstone for us as a company to do that.
That's Sam A. Mowry, founder and director of Willamette Radio Workshop. Sadly, Sam died in July 2024, so this episode is our memoriam to him. I'll return after we hear about The Fusebox Show, produced by our other guest, Marc Rose. Fusebox is a different kind of radio storytelling, full of quirky conversation and comedy, driven by a madcap but purposeful design. Here's a sample.
Fusebox.
But host guy, how do people who have aphantasia function in this world? Can they be creatives? And what is that funny thing hanging over the mic stand? But because I'm a, quote, member of this paying tier, I don't want to see an ad for Fran's pickle polishing service.
Ooh.
Or Handy Panda's barbecued gummy bears.
For flavor and energy.
No, I don't want to see any ads at all, ever. Are you suing me?
Cancelled.
I think I just got sued by a Japanese pocket squirrel. Catch Fusebox, the third Thursday of the month at 1:30 p.m. here on KXRW 99.1.
Learn more at the Fusebox Show website, thefuseboxshow.com. This is Reimagined Radio. I'm John Barber. Our episode is WRW Retrospective Redux, a memoriam for Sam A. Mowry, founder and director of WRW, Willamette Radio Workshop, who died July 2024. Content for this episode includes samples from our 2023 conversation with Sam, WRW Retrospective. In that episode, I asked Sam how he prepared actors for the performances for which WRW is noted. Let's listen to his response.
Yeah, that's a great question. And part of it is, the thing I do most is work with the actors and help them to have a living performance when you're reading, because that's something that I'm a voice actor for my day job, and I've got a lot of experience of reading scripts and cold readings, and something I do well enough to support myself, so that's good. And so most of my work as a director is working with the actors. And then when it comes to sound design and music design and things like that, get the most brilliant people you can to work with you. We would get together and talk about what we were looking for and what I wanted, but I always left most of it up to the designers because they're sound designers, or musicians. But what we kind of developed as a style of Foley and in sound design as well is more kind of a suggestive thing. We create an atmosphere to listen to, and that's what we want in music and sound design and Foley, are things that propel the show, bring you into the space, and sound design and great Foley are that you don't notice it, when you're listening to it. It just fills the space and creates the space, and try to keep things as essential as possible. And that's one of my jobs as the director, is to help shape what we consider essential. And there are times that I'm overruled. I'll say, "Oh, I don't want to do this," and they're kind of like, "Let's try it. Let's do it." And we get together and we run through it, and I hear the sound effect or the Foley, and I'm like, "Yeah, you're right. That works." I love radio because it is a very collaborative experience.
Speaking of collaboration, it was 2013 when Willamette Radio Workshop and Reimagined Radio first collaborated, a production of The War of the Worlds, on the occasion of its 70th anniversary. A live performance at Kiggins Theater in downtown Vancouver, Washington. Standing room only. Based on that success, in December, we offered a live performance of A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. Here's Sam introducing the performance, setting the stage, making us all feel welcome and part of the family.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sam A. Mowry, and I'm the director of the Willamette Radio Workshop. It's winter here in the Northern Hemisphere, a time when cold and darkness lay claim to the outside world, while we mere mortals gather inside in search of light and warmth and community. This is a time for games and feasting, stories and songs, new delights and old traditions. Here in the United States, our traditions, like our very population, come from all over the world. We are enriched by 2,000 years of accumulated customs from the four corners of the globe. The mistletoe, the Druids, the Noel of the French, the Yule logs and holly of the English, the Dutch legend of Sinterklaas. The best songs that have ever been sung, the best games that have ever been played, and the best stories that have ever been told are ours to share together. And what better story to share together on a cold winter's eve than that of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, the tale of Ebenezer Scrooge, a man as solitary as an oyster, who learns at last to reach out to his fellow creatures. Our family has a long-standing holiday tradition of bringing this story to those who cannot venture out into the cold and blustery night in search of stories and companionship. For over 20 years, we have braved the winter weather with friends and family to perform the tale of Scrooge for people in nursing homes and residential care facilities throughout the Northwest. Along the way, our Tiny Tims have grown into Bob Cratchits, and we have said a sad farewell to more than one magnificent Scrooge. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we invite all of you to share in our tradition. We humbly offer up this ghost of a radio program with our warmest Yuletide greetings.
The elements of radio storytelling are scripted dialogue, sound effects, and music. In our 2023 conversation, Sam spoke about scripts and sound effects as creating spaces for listeners. This is what he had to say about music in Willamette Radio Workshop Productions.
Music is key, and another one of the things that makes our productions sound so good is that we've had so many wonderful musicians working with us. One of the shows that was on Reimagined Radio earlier in the year was our hero in Leyden, and Peter Armetta composed the music for that. And it's beautiful. And we did St. James Infirmary, where Galen Huckins put together a jazz group to basically play variations of St. James Infirmary as the interstitial music and as underscoring for certain places. Marty Gallagher, one of my favorite things that he did for us was The Wind That Shakes the Corn. It was written by Sam Gregory. And it starts off as a as a narrator, and I imagined a small Midwestern Presbyterian church that my grandfather used to preach at in the distance, and you could hear this pump organ playing this very mournful little tune that when Marty sat down and started to play that, it just completely set the entire production. The wind blows through time, through space, over the landscape of memory. It's the middle of the previous century, in the autumn of the year. The landscape of gentle hills rolls into the distance, covered with rustling fields of corn. Dark oak trees, their leaves brilliant orange in the golden autumn light, stand beside white frame houses nestled in the cornfields. The sky and roads are a light gray, which fades to white in the distance.
Marty did a great job evoking place and space, didn't he? Just that bit of music and my imagination takes over, creating a world and a way to be in that world.
He's great at that. Marc is great at that, at finding a style of music or instrumentation that provokes an emotional response beyond just kind of like, oh, that sounds pretty or that fits there. It creates emotional depth and resonance to what's happening.
Let's talk about Marc Rose. He's a 3-time Emmy Award-winning sound designer. He produces his own radio shows, Fusebox and Dry Smoke and Whispers. He has composed musical themes for AT&T, Jack Hanna's Wildlife Adventures, Bush Entertainment, Capital Radio London, and many independent films. Sam, tell us a story about working with Marc to achieve sound design for a Willamette Radio Workshop performance.
I remember one of the first times Marc and I worked on War of the Worlds, and he created a new, stunning underscoring underneath it. And, we had rehearsed several times, and then he came in with the music. And what was amazing was I was able to just read it, and the natural flow and sweep of the piece that came up to the end just timed out perfectly. It was like the first time I read it to the music, we both finished right where it's supposed to be. It was just kind of like, that's absolutely perfect. And he does that time and time again. We did the Martian Death March. He had some lovely underscoring, which had so many pathos-filled speeches and moments. And the music just brought such extra emotional depth and weight to the piece. I love to do it over and over.
If I could just add one thing here that occurred to me during all those working with all those things, is having worked with these actors over a period of years, you really start to get a sense for how they might approach something. Not predictive, but you get a sense for what the timing might be, and I think that helped a lot in those two instances you just cited, Sam, because I could hear them in my head, like how they would do this and where they might take a turn or whatever, and so it was kind of inviting them to do what they're going to do by default anyway. But I too was sort of stunned to see the results of that.
Another collaboration between Willamette Radio Workshop and Reimagined Radio was City of Weird, short otherworldly dramas, each adapted by Sam's wife and gifted writer Cynthia J. McGeehan. From City of Weird, an anthology about Keep It Weird, Portland, Oregon. Here's Sam's introduction for the live performance. Listen to how he, an actor's actor, not only foreshadows what lies ahead, but builds an engaging and immersive momentum.
When Gigi Little was editing the short story anthology City of Weird for Forest Avenue Press, she took as her inspiration classic pulp horror magazines like Weird Tales, full of monsters, phantoms, robots, spacemen, alternate universes, the dead, the undead, psychokinesis, curses, mad scientists, disembodied hands, spectral ectoplasm. Why do we love this stuff so much? Of course, the stories in this collection are set in Portland. Portland, home of bridges, extinct volcanoes, and Shanghai tunnels, where people knit cozies around street signs and hitch toy horses to old iron rings bolted in the curbs. So, just what freaks out tattooed, unicycle-riding hipsters anyway? Ravening slime molds from outer space? Mysterious biospheres overrun with newts, bar-hopping gorgons, man-eating octopi, Martian gentrification? Sure. But how about nuclear contamination? Or climate change? Or that overdue super earthquake they won't stop talking about? Or the corruptibility of power, or the power of hate? What about poverty, homelessness, death, disease, loneliness? Which frightens us more, the unknown or the known? WRW is proud to join GG and Forest Avenue Press in exploring fears real and imagined with 4 selections from City of Weird, adapted for radio by Cynthia J. McGeehan.
And there were performances of more serious radio theater, like The Case Files of Dr. Moreau, a story about human interference with nature, adapted by Portland playwright William E. Gregory from the 1896 science fiction novel The Island of Dr. Moreau by H.G. Wells. Gregory also died in 2024, so our sense of loss is doubled as we listen to Sam's introduction and the first scene where he voices the character Wolf.
From the Case Files of Dr. Moreau, Case 897. While Moreau enjoyed many years of privacy and accomplishment on his island, he perceived that his experiments, though successful in their early stages, developed an irreducible flaw. Surgery, conditioning, and cutting edge of recombinant technology each played their part in the delicate construction and careful maintenance of his creations. But he found, to his frustration, that a turbulent instability manifested in their development. No matter how high through art and science he elevated his children, they would in time and with inexorable swiftness begin to revert back to their original bestial natures. Although he knew by the light of his intellect, he would discover a way to master the problem. As of yet, he had discovered no way to prevent the degeneration. No cutting flesh, no shoring up of behavioral codes, no fear of physical violence could contain the reversion once it began. And one afternoon, it began.
Must keep running. Must get away. Yes, Wolf.
Search to the left, through those palms.
Yes, Wolf. Must hide. Must take cover.
Cheetah! Cheetah blast you!
Here, Wolf.
Stay up with the pack. Leopard is dangerous.
No, he's not dangerous. Leopard is only...
Cheetah, I say leopard is dangerous. You obey.
Yes, Wolf. Here, up in the tree.
We must find him. Search the jungle.
There he is! Up in the vines! Up in the vines!
There he is! Surround the tree! Don't let him get away!
Carrion eater! Pack follower! Slave of man!
Careful! Keep him circled! Stay out of reach!
Be careful, Wolf! You and your muley little friend, a pair of whipped puppies!
Calm down, leopard! You can't get away!
Coward! You wait, and you slink away while I act! You are nothing compared to me!
Come out of the leaves! You break the law!
No, you care nothing for the law! Last night you told me...
Silence! Bring torches! Burn down the tree!
Watch out, he's leaping toward you!
Stop this at once! Surrender!
Hold him down, Wolf! is too strong. Do not break the law like this. Do not. Get his arm. He can't move. Do not bow to the person. Do not.
Not yet. But don't think that I won't.
This is Reimagined Radio. Our episode is WRW Retrospective Redux. I'm John Barber, sampling from a 2023 conversation with Sam A. Mowry, founder and director of Willamette Radio Workshop, and Marc Rose, award-winning sound designer who has contributed to several WRW performances and productions. One WRW performance relied heavily on sound design and sound effects. Let's listen to their responses when I asked about producing The Fall of the City. First, Sam Mowry.
I came across that online, and Archibald MacLeish, who I had known a lot about as the poet laureate of the United States, and I'd heard a lot about, and he wrote J.B., and he had written some things for stage, but I had never heard of Fall of the City. And then I saw that Orson Welles was involved, so I was more excited, and I listened to it and just loved the whole piece. I love poetry. I love the political milieu. It listens. Marc and I were talking earlier and said it's been perfect for every generation since it was written. Sadly, we don't learn these lessons, but it's a beautiful piece, and so I brought it back and played it for the whole group, and everybody loved it, and we decided we would go ahead and do it, and talked to Marc about it, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I love that." And so he came in on it, and we did it. In one day we recorded over at PCC Sylvania's theater. We were able to rent the theater for a day, and we had the entire cast in there, and we recorded the whole thing in one day. We did all the live Foley of the crowds, and it was just a really special day. And then Rob, who was producing it with me, Rob Cowell, and we were talking about it, and Marc was going to do the sound design, and he said, "Oh well, give it to me, and I'll let you know when I'm done." And it seemed like it was just a couple of days. It might have been longer, but it seemed like an impossibly short amount of time. He showed up with this, and it was just perfect. It was the most amazing sound design I'd ever heard. I couldn't believe it was us when I was listening to it. And that's one of the things that I always talk to young audio dramatists when they're talking about, what's the most important thing. It's kind of like, it's to have an idea of the space you're in. And that seems to work best for actors too, when you're talking to them. Imagine the space you're in. When I was the reporter and I'm whispering into my microphone because something's going on in the distance, and other times when I'm screaming over the sound of the mechanical monster that's coming into the city. Just what creates the various spaces you're in. And there's a beautiful moment with Linda Gertz playing the dead woman who rises and comes and speaks to the city. And, she just had such a wonderful sense of being one lone person in the middle of this huge, and the whole city surrounding her. And Marc was able to create a sound design that just perfectly evokes that. And it's not an easy thing to do, and it was amazing.
For listeners not familiar with The Fall of the City, the setting is a huge open plaza of an unnamed city where thousands of people are gathered.
Yeah.
The Columbia Workshop hired a large number of extras for the original recording of the crowd scenes and used the Armory building in downtown New York as a sound stage. You and Marc had maybe a dozen people. So the sound design magic that Marc created is really quite impressive and definitely makes one feel present, part of the event that is happening.
I think it's important to note, too, that the crowd and their feet steps and that's all an active performer in this particular story. It's not just a background, it's an actual element. It's an interactive element.
That's Marc Rose, sound designer. Let's listen to this sample from The Fall of the City, sound designed by Rose and performed by Willamette Radio Workshop, with Sam A. Mowry speaking the part of the correspondent describing the events he witnesses in the plaza of the great city.
We are here on the central plaza. We're well off to the eastward edge. There's a kind of terrace over the crowd here. It's precisely 4 minutes to 12. The crowd is enormous. It might be 10,000. It might be more. The whole square is faces. Opposite over the roofs are the mountains. It is quite clear. There are birds circling. We think they're kites by the look. They're very high. The heat is harsh. The light dazzles like metal. It dazes the air as the clang of a gong does. 1 minute to 12 now. There's still no sign. They're still waiting. Now it is 12. Now they are rising. Now the whole plaza is rising. Fathers are lifting their small children. The plume fans on the platform are motionless. There's no sound but the shuffle of shoe leather. Now even the shoes are still. We can hear the hawks. It's as quiet as that now. It is strange to see such throng so silent. Nothing yet. Nothing's happened. Now there's a sound. They see him. They must see him. They're shading their eyes from the sun. There's a rustle of whispering. They can't see for the glare of it. Yes. Yes. He's there in the end of the street in the shadow. We see him. He's huge. A head taller than anyone else. As broad as a brass door. A hard hero. Heavy of heel on the brick. Clanking with metal. The helm closed on his head. The eye holes hollow. He's coming. He's clear of the shadow. The sun takes him. They cover their faces with fingers. They cower before him. They fall. They sprawl on the stone. He's alone where he's walking. Marches with rattled metal. He tramples his shadow. He mounts by the pyramid, stamps on the stairway, turns. His arm rises. His visor is opening. There's no one. There's no one at all. No one. The helmet is hollow. A medal is empty. The armor is empty. I tell you, there's no one there at all. There's only the metal, the barrel of metal, the bundle of armor. It's empty. The push of a stiff pull at the nipple would topple it. Look, it's his arm. It's rising. His arm's rising. They're watching his arm as it rises. They stir. They cry out. They're shouting. They're shouting with happiness. Listen, they're shouting like troops in a victory. Listen! The city of masterless men has found a master. You'd say it was they were the conquerors. They that had conquered. The city has fallen. The city has fallen.
This is Reimagined Radio. Our episode is a memoriam for Sam A. Mowry, founder and director of Willamette Radio Workshop, who died in July 2024. We just listened to samples from The Fall of the City, where Sam, as a correspondent, described the events he saw and heard in the plaza of the great city. In retrospect, we should say that Willamette Radio Workshop, under Mowry's direction, was always experimental, willing to try new approaches to radio theater.
But that's the thing, John. I think you pushed me. I always shied away from doing comedy because I always thought that they were really based on the performer. And you were like, we should really do funny. And we did Laugh Your Dial Off, a bunch of comedic shorts, and I loved them.
This is Reimagined Radio. I'm John Barber, producer and host. With each episode, we explore radio storytelling using voice, sound effects, and music. Here are some examples.
Answer me, who is this? Do you realize you're driving me crazy? Who's calling me? What are you doing it for? Now stop it! Stop it! Stop it!
Smoke comes out! Black smoke drifting over the city! People in the streets see it now! People trying to run away from it, but it's no use! They're falling like flies!
Then something went wrong with the car. It stalled right on the tracks. The train was coming closer. I could hear its bell, its cry, its whistle crying. Still, he stood there. Now I knew that he was beckoning me to my death.
Reimagined Radio. Nothing to see, everything to hear. Heard the third Monday of every month at 1 p.m. Sundays at 6 p.m. on KXRW 99.9 FM.
More information and listening opportunities are available at our website, reimaginedradio.fm. Reimagined Radio is also available as podcasts. Subscribe, listen, like, and review wherever you get your podcasts, or our website. In January 2022, Reimagined Radio launched an ambitious radio adaptation of Richard Holton's pioneering hypertext novel, Figursky at Findhorn on Acid. Here's Richard Holton to tell you about his novel.
Electronic literature? Hypertext novel? What's he talking about?
Hello, I'm Richard Holton, author of Figursky at Findhorn on Acid, with some brief notes before we get started. Electronic literature is often characterized by hyperlinks, words that when tapped or clicked lead to connecting or new information. Figursky at Findhorn on Acid has 2001 hyperlinks that provide many different paths through the story. The path of this radio adaptation follows the three characters of the novel, Frank Figursky, the no-hands cup flipper, and Fatima Michelle Viachanger, as they converge at Findhorn, Scotland, seeking one, or maybe two, mechanical pigs of incalculable value, while stewing in spam, acid, yes, that acid, and wit-slathered repartee.
Our adaptation of Richard Holton's novel Figursky at Findhorn on Acid was intended to be a radio sensorium.
And that's what I love about working with you, John. You always inspire us to do more and different and outside of our comfort zone, and finding exciting ways to work for new adventures in audio. And I love working with you because your depth of knowledge of shows and scripts and genres is unsurpassed in my book. You've done an amazing job, and you really are the lightning rod for audio drama in the Pacific Northwest and I think around the world.
Sam's performance as Frank Figursky was stellar. In this sample, he appears before the crowd at Friday night sharing to explain the mystery of his presence.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'm Shauna from Sweden.
And I am Zed from Amsterdam.
Welcome to Friday Night Sharing. We are the Findhorn ambassadors on duty. We begin tonight with a guest who has recently arrived from America. Perhaps you have seen him around our community and know that he's shy and quiet.
Shauna and I tweezed him a tiny square of window pane about an hour ago, so he should be very talkative. Or not.
Please welcome Frank Figursky.
I kept to myself in prison at Walpole. They called me Egghead. Cuckoo-ca-jewel. Here on the outside, it's like waking up from an orderly dream into a nightmarish chaos. There is no up or down, no right or left. You just keep returning to the starting place. And it's time again, the one dimension, going out in all directions, containing all the others. Welcome to another day at the edge of the 21st century. I'm trying to act normal, trying to follow the action, to be a part of the scene. I think you know I found something in the dunes. You probably want it. Maybe it was intended for you, but it just dropped out of the sky is what I think. Wooden crate, partially buried in sand. Pried off a board with a pocket knife. Found inside something marvelous. Easy enough to hide. You're used to seeing me carry my duffel around now, taking up the extra seat beside me. Couldn't share. I didn't want to arouse suspicions by staying alone in the trailer. So here I am, up on the stage. Feels like I'm drawn here, natural and unnatural at the same time, that I wonder if I'm dreaming. Could this be the acid? Here is what I've been carrying around. A mechanical pig. It's mine. Finders keepers, losers weepers. It's a mechanical pig. One of two said to exist in the world. Have you seen the second one?
He opened a can of Spam from the refreshment table and spooned some into the pig's mouth. He turned controls on the pig's side and it began to shoot slowly with some of the kind of Spam squishing out and dribbling down the shin. Then he worked other controls and the pig defecated all the mushy Spam right there on the stage. Oh, it was quite the grand finale. Good thing he thought to put newspaper down on the polished wood first.
They all just look at me like, is that it then? So as an encore, I have the pig do a little dance. And they applaud courteously as we both walk off the stage and back to my room, where I hide the mechanical pig.
His declining health kept Sam from live performances, but he was very productive in the studio. Here's a sample from Through the Turnstile, a dramatic story featuring Sam and Tom Beckett.
What's your name?
Peter.
Peter. I'm David.
How do you do?
I'm scared, Peter. I'm really scared.
Damn it!
What?
You can't say that. You just can't walk up to another man, a complete stranger, and tell him that you're scared. What's the matter with you?
But you can walk up to another man, a complete stranger, and tell him you hate him?
That's right.
I'm sorry. I know there are rules.
Well, you had an inferior education.
I don't know what to do.
I told you, be a man.
Well, how do you do that exactly?
Get up in the morning, put on your suit, put on your pants, one leg at a time, eat your half a section grapefruit with a serrated spoon, read the front page, put your dishes in the sink, put your paper under your arm, pick up your briefcase and go to the station. You go through the turnstile, you go down the stairs, you wait for your train, and you go to work.
But what if the train doesn't come?
You wait for the train to come.
And what if it doesn't come?
Well, then you go home.
And you'll take off your jacket and you'll loosen your tie, eat dinner, listen to music. And you eat dinner and you take a shower and brush your teeth and you go to bed.
And then what?
And then you get up and do it again.
Will you hold my hand?
What?
Hold my hand.
I'm not holding your hand.
Just till the train comes.
No, sir.
There's nobody here.
I don't care.
I know that we don't do this as a rule.
Us.
Men. But we still hate each other, right?
Right.
It's not like anyone can see us. Just hold my hand. Just till the train comes.
Just until the train comes.
Absolutely.
Well, okay. There. Happy?
Thank you.
This is Reimagined Radio. Our episode is WRW Retrospective Redux, a memoriam for Sam A. Mowry, founder and director of Willamette Radio Workshop, who died in July 2024. He was a big man, with big dreams, a big voice, and an even bigger heart. He is and will be missed. This episode of Reimagined Radio was written by John Barber. Sound design, music composition, and post-production by Marc Rose. Graphics by Holly Slocum Design with Sydney Nguyen. We produce Reimagined Radio with support from KXRW FM, Vancouver, Washington, and KXRY FM, Portland, Oregon. Episodes are archived at our website, reimaginedradio.fm. Podcasts are available at the major platforms or our website. This is John Barber, producer and host. Thank you for listening.
This is a production of Reimagined Radio. Our radio broadcasts are heard on local, regional, and international community radio stations. For on-demand streaming, point your browsers to our website, Reimagined Radio, all one word, no punctuation, .fm. Thank you so much for listening. And please join us again for another episode of Reimagined Radio, where we will continue our exploration of radio storytelling.